Greetings, Paper Demons. Welcome to part 2 of our video series on if an art degree is worth it. In this one, we're going to talk some more about the dangers you should know about when pursuing an art degree and actually answer that question of if an art degree is worth it, which apparently we didn't answer last time, so we're going to answer that for you. We got some more stuff that we want to talk about. In case you're new here, my name is Susie, or BogusRed, and I'm joined by Shyftlock.
Hello, everyone.
And Shyftlock is a content writer and game designer for the PaperDemon art RPG. We both happen to go through the same animation and illustration program at San Jose State, and so we have some opinions about that we wanted to share in case anyone is interested in pursuing art as a career and are just trying to decide whether or not to go into formal education to learn art.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of opinions out there on whether or not art degrees are worth it. Keep in mind that we are just two of those opinions. Definitely do your research before making your decision for yourself.
So one of the first topics we wanted to discuss regarding getting an art degree is gatekeeping. Within the program we went into, it was really difficult to get into it. There was actually a portfolio process where you were taking art classes for, I think it might have been more than a year, maybe 2 years, and then you had to put together a portfolio to kind of prove that you have enough skill to get in to continue on in the program. Was it like that when you went through the program?
It was a little bit different for me as a transfer student. As a transfer student, I had the classwork in my background that basically did the whole, yes, I've proved I can do college. So I did not actually have to submit a portfolio. So that was an enormous amount of stress on my plate, off of my plate, and one of the big reasons why I was even willing to actually try to apply, because at the time I was very much not confident in my skill level and did not think I would be able to pass any sort of portfolio review.
I could see the benefit in having a portfolio process in the beginning because it can be difficult to make progress in a program like that if you don't have a certain basic level of skill, especially given that they have a certain limited number of spots. It kind of makes sense that, okay, they have to have some sort of test to get you through.
Yeah, I think this is something that's really, really common for a lot of art programs, not just ours. I remember when I was doing research into art programs, the vast majority of them did require a portfolio. So that's a very, very common thing, regardless of what program you're going into or whether you're going to a private school or a public school.
Yeah, I think at least in my case, since I started there at the same school, I didn't transfer. I already had access to the professors, so I could be like, here's my draft of my portfolio. What do you think? And then they could give me feedback on what things to take out or put in or whatever. But yeah, I think I got through on my first pass of my portfolio,
Mm-hmm.
which was great. So I didn't really feel the stress that some other students did where they would try multiple times. And it's been a while. It's been a long time. I don't remember how it works. If it was if you didn't get in that semester, you had to wait a whole nother semester before you could try. I think it might have been like that. So it's one of those things that you kind of have to keep in mind because it could delay your progress. I did have a friend who was not able to pass that portfolio review, so they had to pursue a different art degree. Because they didn't have the skill set demonstrated in their portfolio in order to proceed on, it could be a huge bummer. But at the same time, I do understand that for a program like this, you do have to have a decent level of drawing and painting ability in order to succeed. There's a cutoff point where it's okay, you have to know these things at this point, otherwise you're not going to really get anything out of the classes going forward.
Right, yeah. I do have a little bit of frustration with portfolios in that you kind of have to learn art to know art. And that's where people are coming from going into these programs. Like you said, they can't take absolutely everyone who applies to the program just due to impaction, class sizes, etc., and that's the method that a lot of these places have chosen to filter through people. So it's kind of unavoidable, regardless of your feelings on it.
Like, it's not like you had to do the portfolio like right as soon as you started. So you did have a couple of years of classes in beginning, like introductory drawing classes where you were learning some skills before you did the portfolio review. So it's not like you're expected to know everything as soon as you start the program, but it is fairly early on in the process. So I don't really know if I have a point to what I'm saying here. I think I'm just kind of describing what the process is like, and that it could be a barrier that you run into going into an art degree. So another thing to consider if you are thinking about going into an art program, like through a traditional educational means, is there are pros and cons to that versus alternatives, like taking piecemeal courses here and there. I mean, certainly when you go through a program like the one we went through at San Jose State, it's very structured. They have curriculum already set up. There's a sequence of classes you take. You take them in order. You don't even have to think about it. So you just do the work and you show up. So that structure could be very beneficial, I think, for certain sets of people, especially if you're able to keep up with the pace. But if you have a life at all, it can be very difficult to keep up with the classes. So like taking online courses or something that's not towards a degree program where you can kind of go at your own pace can probably be more beneficial depending on your lifestyle.
Yeah, for me personally, the structure was a beneficial thing outside of my complaints with the workload. Because it, like you said, it took all of the thought process of what do I need to do in what order and how much of it all off my plate. Like that was all already decided for me. So I basically just needed to show up to the classes and do the work, and I would learn the things. That it made it a lot easier to me personally, not having to do all of the research and the digging and the building of self-directed courses. So I really appreciated that structure, and that was one of the major reasons that made me want to go into art school in the first place, knowing that yes, I could teach myself on my own. But would I have the motivation? Would I have the enough awareness of even what I need to learn to be able to learn effectively? So that was super good for me to have, outside of, the sheer amount of work we were expected to do, which was largely difficult to manage.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I would have been able to do a non-traditional education path because I needed that structure. Absolutely. I needed the deadlines. I if I had done something self-directed at that point in my life, I would have failed. There's no way I would have been able to do it. I think because as a person with ADHD, I didn't have good like self-management skills yet. I think if I was to try and do something like that today, I'd probably be more successful. But at the age that I was when I went into that program at age 18, I certainly did not have the maturity to take on a program that required a lot of self-study. I didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, another thing, like when you're like a beginner artist, you don't know what you don't know. And like it helps to have someone else there to tell you. Like I could imagine if I was going to go into like a self-study program, there would be courses I would not take because I didn't think I'd need them or I didn't understand why they were useful. So I got a much better education by taking the classes that someone else believed that I needed. Whereas if I was like on my own to decide what I needed, there would have been a lot of things I would not have taken. My skills would not be as good as they are.
Yeah, that's that's for absolutely certain, especially the foundational classes are full of, the unfun stuff where you're learning why things work and how they work as opposed to, ooh, let's slap some shiny sparkles on this. Those are generally, for a lot of artists, in my experience, very difficult to motivate yourself to learn effectively. You can learn, just by trial and error over a long period of time, but it was very, very, very helpful to me to get that initial super compressed, very highly detailed explanation on this is what the foundations are and this is why it's actually important and this is how you learn them.
Yeah, I think especially like with figure drawing, I took figure drawing so many times because once I realized how important it was and I was seeing how much it was contributing to my drawing skill, I just kind of I think I repeated Sheldon's course like 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I took the earlier beginner figure drawing more than once as well. Figure drawing is hard, and I can see how people would not want to take that class if they think, oh, I'm not going to be drawing people realistically, therefore I don't need to take figure drawing. I'm going to draw cartoons. But they don't understand that figure drawing is about learning how to draw. It's not just about learning how to draw the human figure. It's learning how to draw lines in a way that is aesthetically pleasing and how to draw forms and 3-dimensional shapes. And it's so much more than just how to draw humans in a realistic proportion. It's like the foundation for everything.
So another major factor to college degrees is the pacing. We've touched on it several times, but the workload is also an aspect of this that's super important to keep in mind. Firstly, the school format is, of course, a cookie cutter format. Every single class is going to be taken by every person in usually generally the same order, and the same expectations are going to be put on every single student. This kind of reduces the amount of tailoring that the education can do towards individuals. So some professors are willing and able to really go out of their way to help you personally. Other professors don't have the time or motivation. So this really just depends on what kind of program you get into and what professors you end up with. But some classes are very, very tightly paced, and it's difficult to catch up if you get behind due to any life things, even when the professor is working with you. So you do have to keep in mind balancing your ability to exist in your own life with the course expectations that are put on you. So if you have a lot of things going on outside of school, be it health things or work or any other obligations that you're expected to accomplish alongside school, school is going to take a massive amount of time out of your day, out of your week, and you'll need to be able to accommodate your schedule to handle that. So once again, the professors are an incredibly valuable tool. These people are generally passionate about their job and are generally wanting to help you succeed. So you do need to keep in touch with professors, and they may be able to flex the pacing of their class a little bit, but also these classes are constructed this way, the way that they're constructed for a reason. And most of the time you can't get away with just doing a quarter of the work. So if you are not typically available in your life, factor that into deciding whether or not this is a choice that would be beneficial for you.
Yeah, it's a huge commitment, especially these programs tend to take 4 to 6 years, sometimes longer. So that's a lot of your life that has to be spent toward it. You certainly get something great at the end of it. But back to that topic of tailoring, I think that the program we went through has gotten better with that. I mean, now I hear that they've got like a program for specializing in storyboarding, for example, which I don't think they had that when I was there. I think you were pretty much expected to learn a little bit of everything, like background art, character design, production art, animation. So you couldn't really like specialize early on or come out with a specialized portfolio. Everyone kind of came out with a very general portfolio back when I was going through it. And I think that they've kind of realized over time that students are going to have a much easier time getting hired if they can specialize somewhat. Although I think that it's harder for a new grad to go into a specialized position because generally, like a entry level position is not going to be like concept artist, for example. Like a concept artist usually is someone that's a lot more experienced. They're not going to become a concept artist straight out of college generally. I mean, unless they're really good.
Yep, yeah. There are definitely a lot of different specializations in the school that we went through that are available for people. So also keep that in mind when you're picking a school. Take a look at what actual classes they offer or what concentrations they offer, and make sure that those are what you're interested in working on. So, for example, if you're wanting to go into animation, you're going to want to make sure that the program actually does focus on animation and doesn't, for example, specify a lot of classes about concept art and design, and only have one or two animation classes. A program like that would really not be a fit for you. So this is something you got to do your research into before you start applying.
Yeah, that's a great point. Should we maybe talk a little bit about group format, community around school? Because I feel like one thing that is beneficial with going through a program at a campus, you're around other students, which I think is incredibly beneficial compared to like if you were to go take some classes online at your own pace or whatever, you're not really getting as much of the community aspect as you would going through a college program. And I think San Jose State in particular is special because of the Shrunken Headman club there. The students are very organized and getting together and supporting one another and doing events together. I'm not sure what it looks like at other schools, but from what I've heard, it can be very competitive. Students are very competitive with one another and less supportive in other programs, whereas at San Jose State, the students are a lot more like, hey, let's lift each other up, not tear each other down.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a super, super huge part of the experience going through SJSU. A little bit less for me personally because I'm not a particularly social person, but the amount of time that my classmates spent together supporting each other and giving each other feedback and encouragement and just relaxing and spending time hanging out and being that social resource for each other was very, very hugely valuable for a lot of people. And I know one of the things that comes up often in the program is the bragging point of how many people in the program have gotten married who met each other through the program and got married. So the program is very, very much built to accommodate those social needs for people, and it's absolutely incredible to watch. Like, once again, I didn't partake all that much personally, but I saw how much it positively impacted all of my classmates, and gave them, something to hold on to, really. The program's super, super difficult. The material is a lot to take in, a lot to learn. There's a lot of work to do, but when you get together with a whole bunch of your friends and all have pizza together and work on homework until 11 o'clock, it makes it a lot nicer than going home and then just sitting there until midnight, hunched over a drawing pad or something all alone.
Oh yeah, you actually kind of took me back. I could think off the top of my head of 3 couples I know that were in school. No, 4 that were there when I was there, and they're married. Four separate couples. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
like there were definitely a lot of people who met their spouses through this program. So yeah, and we're part of the club. It's pretty amazing thinking about it from that standpoint.
So in one of I can't remember exactly when it happened, but it was sometime in the first half of the first semester. One of our professors initiated an entire discussion in class about anime and some cartoon styles, and brought up on the projector a bunch of examples of extremely bad anime art, and use those as kind of a way to make the point that that really just came across as, anime is bad in a lesser art form. So that wasn't necessarily what was explicitly stated. I think the actual point of it was largely to emphasize the importance of fundamentals, even when you're doing very specific, heavily stylized art. But that was kind of the start of a very, very long-running trend of the authority figures in the program treating certain styles, especially anime and manga, as lesser. And in the beginning of the program, there's a lot of emphasis on the fundamentals in a way that doesn't allow very much for personal expression of style, which was a point of frustration for a lot of students, and has definitely made a lot of people feel very hurt due to the fact that their preferred art style is treated like this in a lead up to a professional arena.
This drives me so nuts because just our generation is into anime. Like, you can't get away from that. Like, a lot of us are influenced by anime, and to just be like, anime is bad, brr. It's such a, I don't know.
Well, a lot of people going into the program, it's especially evident when you're looking at the first year's work. A lot of people going into the program, that's where they got their start. That's what actually made them want to come into the program, and having that point of passion just immediately trampled on is, I feel, not a very good way to start out with these students, even though I do understand from some angles the point that they're trying to get across in having this discussion with the students.
It's just a dumb argument to make, because anime, there's a lot of anime, and there's good anime and there's bad anime, and there's very well respected and very artful anime, and there's also not so great anime. So it's not really fair to be like, oh, anime is not a good use of the fundamentals, because you could say the same thing about American and Western animated cartoons. There's some pretty bad Western animated cartoons, and there's some really good ones. It's a broad spectrum. It's too big of a genre to really put any sort of good or bad you can't really label it that way, because it's way too broad. The influence of anime on artists of today is so pervasive, you can't get away from it. I mean, even when I was in school, studying, I was actively trying not to draw an anime style, but because so much of my drawing was based on that in the early days, the style is just kind of there. You can't really undo all of that. I mean, yes, I have to learn the fundamentals and draw and use those and learn those fundamentals, but that doesn't mean that it's going to take away every aspect of style that I have built up to that point. It's the influence is still there underneath.
Right. Yeah. I think my issue with it is not necessarily the point they're trying to make. It's more of the approach. And this is something that I've kind of seen a lot of just in bigger art spaces, just a little bit less flexibility on what counts as good art. I feel like it would be more valuable if the focus was, the goal here is to teach you how to improve what you want to do, instead of, well, you need to actually learn the real art before you go back to doing your little whatever anime cartoons sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely that way when I was in the program too, and I was in it 10 years earlier than you. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, even if you look at the professional stuff that's coming out of Western animation today, a lot of it you can see anime influence. So I think that there was kind of this, the professors at the time were kind of saying don't put any anime in your portfolio because it looks really unprofessional. But if you look at what's happening today and what's coming out in newer cartoons today, there is clearly an anime influence on Western and American animated shows. It's not there's no way it could be considered like unprofessional to have anime drawings in your portfolio today, because it's everywhere.
Right.
There certainly are certain things that are unprofessional to put in your portfolio, and certainly there are things that are bad habits that are crutches from using certain styles and everything. But I don't know. I think as a whole, it just doesn't make sense to focus on the anime thing at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, I could rant about the whole anime and comic book thing. I think it's really dumb, honestly.
Yeah, that's definitely, I can see a very big point of frustration for you. It was definitely less of an issue for me because I've never been super into the anime style. It was never a major learning point for me, but I definitely was not super keen on the way that it was presented by the professors. I kind of felt like it was a little bit demeaning, especially considering how many, like we said, how many people, came into the program because of their passion for that.
Yeah, there was also a lot of demeaning of other forms of art. I remember that specifically, like, oh, the people on the third floor who are doing fine art, who are studying fine art, like, oh, they don't know how to draw, like they're not real artists or whatever. I mean, those phrases weren't exactly said in those ways, but basically there was a lot of elitism about the animation and illustration program being a superior form of art compared to fine art.
Right. Yeah, I've definitely heard that happen in a lot of other programs as well, and it's not helpful. We are making divisions between artists is not a productive way to enhance creativity.
No, I think it just kind of seeds these feelings of comparison that end up not helping anyone.
Right. Which is like we were saying, one of the big value points of our program was the fact that all of the students were really strongly encouraged to help each other and support each other and uplift each other, instead of foster a sense of competition. And this was one point where the program kind of did not follow its own advice.
All right, so we've talked a lot about how school is anti-anime, how the pacing can be pretty rigorous, and how that structure can be very beneficial for those who need it. And we've got a lot more that we want to say on this topic. We've kind of run out of time here, but in our next video, we're going to have a third video. We're going to talk about the costs involved with pursuing a degree today, and technology, how well schools are integrating technology today. We're going to talk a little bit about professors and choosing professors that are a good fit for you, as well as critique, how this critique goes within a school environment like this. And of course, we're going to finally answer that question. Is it really worth it after discussing all of these pros and cons? Is it actually worth it to go through an art degree program like this? Thank you so much for joining us for this part 2 of our video series on if an art degree is worth it. We will catch you in the next video.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Bye. Do you like to draw? Play the PaperDemon Art RPG. Draw your original characters on adventures through the Paperverse. Every drawing earns you loot and XP. Join forces with your friends to defeat monsters and art block. Register your character today.